So this is a hard question, and it's evident after you just read the first sentence, because I had to kind of read it twice. What exactly are they saying? Are they talking about, stalls that are multiple strips? But you realize that we are painting sections, and these are strips, and you have multiple of these all the way to the end. And the space here is half the length of these painted sections. So if this is D, then this is half D. And so you keep doing these all the way here. Then they tell you this total length is 203 inches. And there are a couple of things that you have to read carefully. N is an integer, which means the number of these stripes. And the length of these unpainted section, which is half D, is also an integer. So that's also important, which is greater than 2. And so the key condition is that the total length has to be equal. So if there are n of these strips, then this length is nd. And you'll notice that the gaps are going to be one less than the number of these stripes. So that length in the gap would be n minus 1, meaning those are the number of gaps we have, times half d, and that's equal to 203. So that's the condition. And I'm going to multiply both sides by 2, because I don't like in integer problems any denominators. So we have equal to 406. Then I'm going to distribute nd minus d equal to 406. Combine that. 3nd minus d is 406. So here I want to just share with you how I actually did it originally, because there are many times you will hit a dead end. Because I read the question as they're interested in n, I isolated n. But you'll see that this is harder because there's really no structure here. At least I can't see anything, at least when I did it first, that would help me to assign values of d that would give me n to be integer. I think it's harder. Whereas what's easier is if you isolate d. So that would be 3nd minus d equal to 406. Then I factor out a d. You'll end up with 3n minus 1. This is a more easier structure to deal with. Why? Because you have answer choices with n values. So in this case, sometimes I can solve them directly if the structure is so that it's easy enough to do. But that's actually not the case. It's possible that there's something I'm not seeing. So one approach is you just use the answer choices, and what you'll have to do is to select a value for n. Most students are going to start with a. You plug in and find what do we get for d. So 15 minus 1 is 14. You reduce this, and 7 times 2 is 14. 6, 7 times 9 is 63. Okay. So of course, that I'm just going to warn you is a trap, because anytime I plug in values, I'm going to compute all of them. So d is 29, n equal to 5. I'm going to do the rest of them. And at this point, it's kind of just grunt work. N is 9, so 27 minus 1, 26. 13 does it divide. 13 times 1 is 13. 7. 13 times 6 is 78, so that doesn't work. So b is out. dn is 10, so that would be 30 minus 1 is 29. You're going to have to do the division directly. 29, 11, and it's going to be 4. And yeah, that works. So we have another case. That's why I think and we'll see how to eliminate these two. Sometimes that raises a flag when you're doing this in the exam. So d is 14, n is 10. And then I have 14, so that would be, d would be 406. 14 times 3, 42, 41. And 41 times 10 is 410, so we know that this is not going to be an integer. And finally, we have 29. 3 times 29 minus 1. 2, 3 times 2, 6, 8, 87 minus 1, 86. And again, 86 times 4 is 344. You'll see the next multiple is going to be 420 something. So that also doesn't work. So really, we're down to these two. The part you have to go back and read is that the length of the unpainted section is an integer, and the unpainted section is half d. So you'll see that in this case it would be 7 inches. In this case, it won't be an integer. It would be 29/2 or 14.5 inch. So that's what eliminates answer choice A, which is the trap. So the answer is n equal to 10, which is choice C. Now, I do want to show you another way that you could guess the values of n. So let me just start with this one. And that has to do with factoring 406. So 406 is 2 times 203. And then you have to figure out that, yes, this is divisible by 7. Again, that's some work. That's this. Right. And now we're looking for integer values for d. N also is constrained to be integer. So if 3n minus 1 is 14, that would give us d as 29, because that term drops out, and then n is 5. And you'll see that that doesn't give me an integer value for half d, so that one is out. Now we could pair, actually just 29 I can make equal to 3n minus 1. In this case, n would be 10. That's our other solution. And d in this case, because this piece is 29, would be 14. So that would be one way you could generate. But this is not what I did in the exam. I mean, it seems good now, looking at it after the fact, but sometimes it can be difficult to do this in the exam under pressure. But I just wanted to show you that there is another way out. There's also the third possibility, would be 3n minus 1 could be 29 times 2. Well, that doesn't work because n wouldn't be an integer. But you could also have 29 times 7. Which is 796, 7 times 2, 14, 203. 3n minus 1 is 203. 3n is 204. N is 68. But you'll notice that in this case, d would be 2. And if you remember, they gave us a condition that each unpainted section half d is greater than 2. So that's what would have eliminated that. But either way, it's work if you want to just discover the possible values of n. In this case, in my opinion, using the answer choices was easier. So you need to be flexible, I'll say, in these cases. So to recap, the answer is 10, choice C.